Every now and then, very rarely, I am wrong with my opinions. If I were wrong here, it'd be really good news for the Ducks.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, it is that time. Once again, for Locked On Ducks, I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view of the day. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and your number one source to stay up to date with the Ducks. All things recruiting on today's show with longtime recruiting analyst Brian Smith, host of the Portal Podcast, brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel, where if you bet $5 and it's your first bet and it wins, you get $150 in bonus bets. So make sure you go and check them out today. Not tomorrow, do it today. So, Brian, I have been hesitant, to say the least, to think that Oregon could get a top 5 class if they don't land Tyler Atkinson, which I really don't expect them to. We'll talk about him more in just a moment. He's the number one linebacker in the class of 2026 for those who don't know. But Oregon in the 24/7 rankings is number 9 nationally right now. If they don't land Atkinson, there are a couple of other big names out there like Tank Jones and Devon Benjamin. If they don't land a player of Atkinson's caliber, can you see them jumping the schools that are ahead of them to get inside the top 5?
No. They would be on the cusp maybe if they hit on the other kids, but they would probably be somewhere more like 7 to 12 range. I think it's safe to say they're going to add a few more guys and they'll probably flip somebody in the fall. As I always tell you when I come on this show, they're the hardest team to read. There could be somebody we don't even discuss today that ends up being on the radar. That happens for everybody, but you got to sign somebody in that top 50 range to make big jumps. So you're absolutely right.
Yeah, and Atkinson is somebody who Oregon is a finalist for. I just, in my head, I'm not getting expectations up for the Ducks that they're going to walk into Kirby Smart's backyard and say, I know you would like to get the number one linebacker in the class, as they did a couple, 1 or 2 cycles ago. And I know you'd like to get him. And I know he's not that far from your campus relative to Oregon, of course, but we're going to bring him up here to Eugene. Like, I just can't. I'm not going to say it's a 0% chance that they land him, but I imagine you see it the same way.
He's about as close to Kirby Smart's front door as he is to the Atlanta airport to fly all the way to Oregon.
That's a challenge.
I like UGA here. I'll just go ahead and say it. Here's a stat for you. If they finish this year in the top 3, it'll be 10 consecutive years. 10.
Georgia, that is.
Yeah, I like Georgia. Call me crazy. I like Georgia.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, obviously, it's great for Oregon to be a finalist again, but it turns out Kirby Smart hasn't forgotten how to recruit yet. He hasn't let the sport pass him by. He's not doing any of those things. So let's say that you and I are both right, and Atkinson winds up going to Georgia, but there are still other big names out there. And Georgia is one of those schools that's ahead of Oregon in the rankings right now. Let's say, and they have a crystal ball in over 24/7, they land Devon Benjamin. Help me and my audience understand, Brian, what does that do for Oregon's recruiting ranking? And why would Atkinson allow them to get inside the top 5, whereas getting a guy like Benjamin, who's still a really good and talented player, where would that move Oregon's class?
Part of this depends on which network you go with and how all that works. But like 24/7 just does points. There's a lot of subjectivity into the on-3/rivals. That's a whole nother deal. Don't get me started on that.
Yeah.
Big news I know there. More than I need to, and it would be very confusing. I'm not going to go down that road here, but on 24/7, it's probably more valuable because it's just sheer points. Here's the math. You can calculate it. That's it. On 3, part of that is what they think, class balance, blah, blah. There's all kinds of stuff. But like, I saw Atkinson as a sophomore going into his junior year, and I'm like, I would take him right now at Georgia, at Ohio State, whatever. Like, he went to the Under Armour camp. And I'm like, who's that? And they're like, oh, he's the underclassman here that everybody wants to see. And I'm like, I can see why. Like, so he's a number one edge / just do it all kind of guy. I think that like he's such a special athlete and he's really motivated. Great kid, really motivated. I would imagine On3 would rank him as high, maybe even higher, like if he went to Georgia. And I think, to be honest, one of the reasons they do well subjectivity, it's where the kid goes because they trust certain coaches more than others. I'm just going to say it here. Do you trust Kirby Smart with front seven defensive players?
I think his track record is pretty solid.
Yeah, I think the same thing with Dan Lanning. Like he worked for Kirby, like they get it. So that's why, like guys like that are elite. Everybody loves Atkinson in the industry. There's not one person I've heard say he's not a dude. That's the difference. Like he's a guy that's plug and play at some. I mean, Georgia's ridiculous at linebacker. He would start at probably well over half the schools as a true freshman in the P4. So that's the difference to me. So yeah, that's a difference maker. Nothing against any other linebackers this year. He's the most versatile guy. You could even use him as a pass rusher. There's a reason he's so highly claimed.
So if Oregon were to go out and get a Devon Benjamin or even a Tank Jones type, to me, if you're going about it trying to land another top 5 class without Atkinson in the fold, which you and I agree is going to be really, really difficult, I think the small possibility would remain, but only if you had some high priority decommitments from schools that are ahead of Oregon. Because obviously Oregon's class is not going to just sit where it is. They're at, I think, 14 players, right? It's not going to be that small. Like they're going to land other guys. But in order to once you get inside the top 10, my take has been, okay, you now have to flip somebody from a school that's ahead of you or have him flip to a school that's behind you, because you can move up a lot easier from 15 to 10 than you can from 10 to 5. Am I reading that correctly?
Yeah, that's true. The schools, though, just for the record, most years 5 to 10, they're pretty close. The difference will be a Tank Jones. Like that's another guy that's an elite player. Like when you meet him and you shake his hand, you understand why. That kid, I would have taken him as a sophomore. He was a guy that every school in the country offered before he could drive a car. Those are the kinds of players that make a difference. So, yeah, you need one of those guys to flip. So, it's possible. And if you could add Tank, maybe somebody else. I mean, I don't know. Any of these top 50 kids they're still after, you need at least one of those. And probably, as you noted, committed to Georgia, Ohio State, Notre Dame, one of those to flip. That's going to help you. And it's possible. But like I said, Oregon is the hardest team to track. I bet you there are at least, out of the top 100 kids that are committed, there are probably 10 or more that are talking to Oregon still. Oregon's a cool school. Sometime by October, you're going to text me and say, we got to talk about somebody. It's going to happen. The question is, can they get them? I mean, it's one thing to get them to visit again. Can they get them? They usually do, though. They usually get one of those kids sometime between the beginning of the season and the end.
Yeah.
I'm going to count on it to end that way again until otherwise proven. They've got a great track record of it.
Yeah. No, they've historically had a couple of really high-profile names commit during the season, early portion of the season, even sometimes later as the season goes along. Aiden Breland committed the day of the Washington game in 2023. Like that's always the example that stands out the most to me, but certainly it's not the only one that is out there. And speaking of linemen that Oregon has gotten recently, they picked up a trio of guys. I got Brian's thoughts with film breakdown coming up next. First, this episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action, so why not make it a little more thrilling? Add a little bit of extra juice. With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are busy getting sunburned at the beach. You will be busy getting in on all of the action. And if you wanted to bet anything Oregon-related for college football, you can do that. You've got point spreads for not one, but two high-profile games. Indiana, it's a big number. It's minus 14.5. At Penn State, Oregon, an underdog, plus 4.5. You feel great about Oregon's chances of winning either of those games comfortably, hey, it's right over there for you at FanDuel.com. If you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. So go check them out. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Okay, Brian, let's jump into the film room, and I do want to provide a quick correction of myself. Immanuel Iheanacho is how he told Pat McAfee on ESPN. He pronounces his name, 5-star offensive tackle, and he is probably the most high-profile recruit that Oregon has landed this cycle. I mean, he's not the only 5-star. Kendra Harrison and Jet Washington are in that category as well, but Iheanacho is a guy that I know you have seen plenty of and really, really like. So let's start with him and what stands out most with this guy, aside from the fact that he is huge, 6'6.5", 345.
So he must have dropped weight. He was 352 when I talked to him. So he's
he's slimming down.
The most incredible thing about him, besides the fact that he is that big, is the ability to bend. I was surprised how much his lower extremities could move. He could bend, he could stay low. Usually guys that tall, that heavy, they're stiff, and speed rushers give them a lot of problems, and they got to play inside. That's the only chance. He could play tackle. Now, do I like him at guard? Sure, but I think he can play tackle. And I saw him do it against elite kids at the Under Armour game. That's all I really need to know. Without that, it's just the bare things that you would expect. If he gets hands-on, it's over. Like, that is this God-given strength that cannot be placed into context. He could move a 300-pound guy like I pick up a potato chip. So it's insane. But he's a raw kid. He's still got a ways to go. But like his bend, I'm telling you, they're going to be able to play him at multiple spots. And if he challenged for a job as a freshman, it wouldn't shock me. As a sophomore, there's no way that kid's not starting. Where they put him, they'll figure it out. They've got a good O-line coach at Oregon. But don't be surprised if he ends up being the left tackle one day or something, because he's got the skill to do it.
Well, it wouldn't surprise me, because who I've roughly, not one-to-one, but who I've kind of spoken in the same breath about him with regards to is Josh Connerly, who was just taken in the first round for the Ducks to the Washington Commanders. And Connerly, a guy who played as a true freshman, as their jumbo package offensive lineman, started as a sophomore, thrived, and really developed into an All-American caliber guy his junior year, to the point where he was shutting down Abdul Carter in the Big Ten championship game. And that's just not something that I think he could have done as a sophomore, certainly not as a freshman. It's not something most players can actually do. But Iheanacho, like Connerly, basketball background. And I think that's where that kind of nimbleness you're talking about can come from with some guys of that size. But I could see the offensive line has got 4 newcomers, because they lost 4 guys from last year for the Ducks this season, and several of Pranon and Bedford and Isaiah World are all, I believe, done after this year. So there's an opening. Now, there are other guys that are more experienced that maybe wind up being starters along that offensive line. But from what you are saying, it sounds like he can play as a true freshman, but is probably a bit more suited to be a full-time starter as a sophomore.
Yeah, there are very few guys that I say are plug and play. Maybe 1 or 2 a year. So that's nothing to sneeze at. Plus, he's going to Oregon. They're not going to force him into action, because they're not. You and I agree, they're probably not going to be the national title contender this year. They're on that edge. Next year, they should be, if Dante Moore comes back. So are you going to put a freshman in there? I'd imagine they're going to get a grad transfer or get somebody else, or they're going to have a guy that's already on the roster take that spot, and he'll be in the 2 deep. That's my projection. If he over exceeds expectations, by all means, but as his sophomore season gets there, he'll be in the line. He's just too good. By then, he'll know the system, and his technique will be even better. It'll take care of itself.
Do you think he's more likely to play tackle in college?
Depends on what you want to do system-wise. Like, the Ducks want to play a lot of power football, and they get the ball out quick. So this isn't like 5-step, 7-step drop stuff. So I think he can play tackle in their scheme pretty easy. It just depends on what they need him to do because it really doesn't matter. He can play either.
They pulled Josh Connerly a lot over the last couple of years in the run game. They run a lot of counter. They'll run, toss on the edge with a pin and pull concept. Like they moved Connerly around and used that athleticism a lot. Do you think that once he gets fully acclimated to the college game, Iheanacho is someone that can do those sorts of things?
Absolutely. I'm telling you, it's surprising because you look at him and you're like, oh, this kid's going to be slow. He is not. He can bend, he can change direction, and he will surprise you. I got to watch him from 5 feet away. I mean, literally standing right behind him as he went through O-line drills. That is not a normal human being.
Another offensive lineman that Oregon got, who is actually a similar size to Immanuel Iheanacho.
That's scary.
It is scary good for Oregon, potentially. Tommy Tofi kickstarted the Oregon recruiting momentum. They've picked up 4 guys in the last week. It was Tofi first, then it was Iheanacho and Devin Jackson, who we'll talk about later on the show, and a Jalen Lott committed earlier this week. We'll discuss him too. But Tofi is interesting because it seems to me, Brian, no one really knows where he's going to play. Prototypically, his frame lines up to be a tackle. I mean, Iheanacho is 6'6.5", 345, according to 24/7. Tofi is 6'6", 330, but I've heard him be discussed more as an interior offensive lineman. Is that where you see Tommy Tofi playing?
It's interesting. I could see either. He is a very, very large young man, by the way. Seeing is believing. But I loved his film. He's been coached well. His pass set's pretty good for a high school kid. It was impressive. I think he could play tackle, but if he moves like that, it just comes down to demeanor. If you want to be that nasty guy, it takes a different kind of mindset to want to go play against guys that bench 430 and weigh 310. So that's going to depend on Tommy. But he can play on the edge. The high school he plays at, they spin it. They're not trying to run the ball. They're trying to throw it. It's air raid stuff. And he was really good at it. So I'm a little conflicted. But that's a good thing. Again, have options. Let the players figure it out, and the coach just plugs them into the spots. You have to earn your spot if you want to play tackle. It's usually what most kids want to play. It's a harder spot, but there's more money if you make it to the league. So I think he can play either.
Do you think that as his college career goes along, I'm thinking about a guy like Kavika Rogers, who began his career at Oregon, was not a super highly rated recruit, is still on the roster, by the way, and figures to be a factor potentially in Oregon's offensive line rotation. He's played both inside and out throughout his career and has just gone back and forth. Oregon had another guy a few years ago in the Cristobal era, Calvin Throckmorton, I believe, played every spot at some point along the offensive line, except he might have had to fill in at center for, again, he played like 4 spots. When Tofi has the ability to go either way, how feasible is it that a guy of his size and his talent can just be able to do whatever is needed? Hey, I'm the starting right guard, but our right tackle went down, and now I slide over one spot and do it. Is that an easy thing to be able to do, or is it rare?
No, it's not. I actually, Francis Malinoa, I spoke with him the other day. He was at the Under Armour Future 50 camp helping some of the kids, and I've known him a while. And he was talking about you get really used to being in one spot. Like if you're playing right tackle and they move you to the left, it's totally different. So it depends on the spot you're moving. If you stay on the same side, it's easier. But that's also why in practice, most coaches move their guys around constantly because they know at any time somebody's ankle gets rolled up. It's part of football. Sometimes it's not friendly, but you're in the middle of the third quarter and the guy across the line is somebody that is going to be a big-time pass rusher. Abdul Carter, obviously, somebody like that. You better have another tackle ready. That's not going to go well. So it just depends on the O-line coach and whether they got to switch sides. When they go from right to left, that can get dicey.
Last offensive line recruit that Oregon has at the moment I want to ask you about. I know Kaloy Kelly, not a super highly rated guy, doesn't have a ton of film out there to review, 6'3", 290 pounds. I've heard that he is someone that likely projects as a center but plays guard as well. Is that more interchangeable to you going from guard to center than going from guard to tackle?
100%. It's about length usually. Kids, there's like this magical land you go through. If once you get to 6'4", you're allowed to play tackle. It's like it's a weird thing. Like coaches are really weird about the height weight things. It's not just Kirby Smart or Nick Saban, like all coaches. And a lot of it has to do with reach. And the other part of it is mentality. If you like playing on the inside, again, you're going against guys that bench 400 pounds, that weigh 310. It's a different mentality. So he probably likes that. And by the way, Hawaii football is pretty darn good, especially for linemen. If you're going to get somebody that's a quote unquote 3-star or whatever, it's a pretty good stick to get one from.
Yeah, I agree. And I think Oregon stacking depth is a really good sign. And we know Alik Terry can recruit. And so it's not surprising that he stacked up these sorts of wins. His profile has been growing pretty quickly over the last couple of seasons. Still more to come with Brian here on the show because we're going to go outside the line of scrimmage. We'll talk about Jalen Lott. We'll talk about Devin Jackson, the state of Oregon safety room in the class of 2026. That's coming up next. Right into it. 3, 2, 1, ready, fire, and aim. Wrapping up today's show with Brian Smith of the Portal Podcast, longtime recruiting analyst. Let's talk about Jalen Lott, the last player to commit to the Ducks on Tuesday. Committed to Oregon over Texas, LSU, and USC. Pretty good cadre of teams to go and pull a kid out of the state of Texas for. He has some ties to other schools as well in his family bloodline, so Oregon going to get him. Pretty impressive deal. He's interesting. Let's start with the receiver side of him. What stands out when you watch his film?
Holy cow, can he hit the second gear?
Yeah.
Well, after, like, some guys are just fast, but you notice like they always get tripped up. He'll get somebody shoot at his ankles, and then one step later, he's at full speed again. I don't know if that's God-given, if it's instinctual. I don't know what it is, but like he's incredible at screen game, short passes. You got to wrap. He bounces off guys, and he is gone. It would be hard for me as a coach, and I know Dan's defensive guy, it'd be hard for me to take the ball out of his hands. I get the whole safety thing, though. Like, if you have speed like that coming off the hash in today's game, okay, I get that too, but I would lean wide receiver. The problem is the Ducks are probably loaded there more than they are DB, if I was to guess.
Well,
Close.
see, that's the interesting thing is their 2025 defensive back haul, best in the history of the program. They have 3 other safeties who are committed in the class of 2026, Devin Jackson, who we'll get to, Xavier Larice, and then Jet Washington, who by 24/7's rankings is their highest rated player after Iheanacho along the offensive line. So Jet Washington's their highest rated defensive recruit. You've also got Ife Obadegwu potentially going to start this year. This is only his second season of college football. Naeem Offord is a true freshman this year. Trey McNutt is a true freshman this year. Aaron Flowers is a redshirt freshman. Like, there's a ton of talent, frankly, in that defensive secondary and in the receiver room. And I think it's, if Evan Stewart doesn't come back to Oregon next year, and I'm not confident that he will, I would love for him to, but when you're away from a team for an entire season with injury, it can just feel weird. Guys want a fresh start after that much time out, but maybe it comes back. Let's say he doesn't. That receiver room still has Jeremiah McClellan, former Ohio State commit, who I like a lot. It'll have Gatlin Bear, who's coming off a 2-year LDS mission, but was a 5-star in the class of 2024. DeCorian Moore will be in year 2. Jurion Dickey will still be there, former 5-star. Kyler Casper will be in his 5th year of college football. Justice Lowe will be in his 5th year of college football. Like, I don't think there's an easy path to playing time on either side. But it sounds like, Brian, if you were going to play him on one side of the ball, it would be as a receiver.
He's got the explosiveness to score on the most generic play known to man. Teams that just want to keep everything in front of you. And let's be honest, about 8 or 9 of the teams each year that Oregon plays, they don't have as much talent. So they play umbrella defense. Okay, we're going to screen you. Well, he'll make 3 guys miss and score. Like, my mom can call that play. Dan doesn't have to have the headset for that. That's why he's more valuable to me on defense. As long as he wants to play it. You've got to accept running the playbook and all that regardless. So I guess it really doesn't matter. But if he likes offense, kids like that with that type of explosiveness on a short pass, I think it's a pretty easy decision.
What do you see from him as a defensive back prospect?
His ability to break on the ball. It's the same thing, just in reverse. Like, if you're going to put the ball in harm's way, man, it better be accurate. Like, that ball is going the other direction. So I would rather him play free safety than corner, but he could probably play it in some schemes. Like, the speed he has, that like he could be a unique cover 3 corner, kind of like Pete Carroll's system or something. Bigger corner, play off the ball and break on. In some schemes he could. I don't know if he'd be a man corner, but as a free safety, he's guy comes off the hash. Good luck. You better be accurate, because he's going to be able to get to the football where most safeties could.
Yeah, playing both ways is a challenge. It's not impossible. We discussed when he was still an Oregon target whether Brandon Arrington is going to do that. He very well could at Texas A&M, depending on what their depth chart needs are on either side of the ball. Travis Hunter, of course, famously did it. And, anytime I see someone going 2 ways as a receiver in DB, I'll get a comment or question from someone, hey, is he a Travis Hunter type? Like, I hope you only mean that he's a potential 2-way player at receiver and defensive back, because Travis Hunter is like Jalen Lott is an incredible athlete, but he's not as highly regarded or highly rated as Travis Hunter was, right?
Yeah, Travis, like that, we knew that he was in contention for the number 1 player right out the gate. Like, that was insane. Yeah. He was human joystick. It was comical watching him play high school football.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't imagine that. He had to have gotten bored at some point in time.
No, he has Jordan traits. He wants to embarrass every player on every play.
I really hope that my screen is just glitching, because right now the top of your head is moving and the rest of your face is frozen on YouTube.
I don't know. I don't have anything.
I don't know either. I'm gonna try to fix this real quick. Well, one guy who I know, and I have no idea if that was actually a problem for people watching on YouTube or if that was just my computer being glitchy, but I assure you it looked funky, so just a little quality assurance there on my end. But a guy who I know will play defensive back during his career at Oregon is Devin Jackson, who committed the same day as Iheanacho. What do you see from Devin Jackson back there at the safety position, a guy who is 6'2", 195?
He's got the frame, my friend. I've seen him play. He's an athletic kid. He looks like a college safety. He's supposed to look. He plays at First Academy. I know that program. Like every player on their defense will play college football, literally. It is the kind of program that's going to get challenged from start to finish. He will come into Oregon prepared, mentally, physically, length, all that stuff. But most importantly, he's got the ability to play in zone or man in some capacity. I don't want him playing man on like a boundary receiver like Jeremiah, but he is a versatile guy. You could probably play him at nickel in some capacity. That's a coup right there. They got 2 really good DBs out of Florida this year. That's not easy, even for Oregon. That is commendable. So it's a kid that, like the Florida schools, recruited just like the other kid too. So Maurice,
I wanted to ask you about that, because Oregon's sitting at 3 safeties right now, potentially 4 if Jalen Lott were to at least dip his toe into the water on that side of the ball. I wouldn't think they go out and get another one, because Devon Benjamin's a corner, right? More than a safety?
Yeah, I would say so.
So 3 safeties, how do you think that all works out? Do you think this is the staff bringing in as much talent as they can, knowing in the back of their mind, yeah, all 3 of these guys are not going to stick around for their entire careers at Oregon, but we might as well give them a chance to do that?
I think it's twofold. Number one, you just take as many good players as you can. If they end up transferring, they end up transferring. The second thing is you start at minimum in nickel defense now. I think Maurice is the perfect nickel. Like John Garcia Jr. and I talked about it. We both love him. I think that'll be his spot.
Yeah.
So Lott, I would imagine, is a guy that if he played safety would be a free safety. But Jet Washington, that seems like free safety to me. So
yeah,
pretty. Maybe you play strong safety, but I doubt it. Anyway, they'll be fine. They've got the different pieces with who they have committed to run 3 safeties. because your nickel, because Maurice is really good man coverage. I've seen it. Like he could play some corner. You can play him at that nickel spot, and he can be your jack of all trades. And he's a great kid that'll get after it. So they're in a good spot.
Yeah, and Jackson 6'2", 195, Washington 6'5", 200 pounds. Larice just 5'10", 185, according to 24/7. But 5'10", 5'11 is kind of where Oregon has had that nickel spot over the last couple of years. Brandon Johnson last year came over from Duke. I thought he had a really good season with the Ducks, and I think it was only 5'10", 5'11 because you have to have a little bit more of that kind of shiftiness to your game, right? Like you can't, or like in your view, why is a nickel typically a couple inches shorter than maybe an outside corner or a free safety?
If you're an experienced quarterback and you come out in 4 wide and you've got your tight end in the slot over that guy, why not reverse it? Put a smaller guy like a running back there and say, good luck. If you've got like Washington and some of these other guys, these big safeties, they have value, but if you change and you put a slot guy that's 5'9", 170 or the quick running back out there, they're not covering them. You got to go speed first.
Gotcha.
That's the thought, because if they just run a seam route and you don't get hands on them, strike up the band. That's the problem. Unfortunately, there's no great answer, because whatever you put out there, they can switch to the other, but I'd rather you lose to a tight end who's plotting than the 5'9", 175 guy who's a track kid. It's unfortunate, but the defense is always at a disadvantage in the slot.
Fire up the band. I got to work that into a play-by-play broadcast this fall. I'm gonna make a mental.
That's actually from the Reggie Bush era when he was going his last year. One of the other Pac-12 coaches said, Pac-10. You put a line or whatever it was then. Whatever.
It was the Pac-10.
Okay, you're that guy.
I am.
You're such a football nerd. Yeah. They said if you put a linebacker on him, it's strike up the band, and I've never forgotten it because I saw Reggie play live. He was not wrong.
Oh yeah, no. The Reggie Bush cutback against Fresno State is about the only nice thing or memory I will ever have about USC. That and Vince Young with Keith Jackson on the call going for the corner in the national championship game. That was good too. But we'll call it there for today. Brian Smith, the Portal Podcast, longtime recruiting analyst. Great as always, my man. Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time. Until then, hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and go Ducks.